When senators step into the spotlight and question someone else's qualifications, it's easy to forget their own resumes rarely hold up under the same kind of scrutiny. That's exactly what exploded in Washington when Senator Markwayne Mullin fired back during a heated debate over Pete Hegseth's nomination. Mullin's message was simple but devastating. If lawmakers want to grill nominees about their past, maybe they should first take a hard look in the mirror. Because the truth is, becoming a senator requires little more than age, citizenship, and winning enough votes, yet those same people act like gatekeepers of the nation's defense. So why the double standard?
Lies in the national offense. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record.
Without objection.
You know, there's a lot of talk going about talking about qualifications and then about us hiring him if we are the board. But there's a lot of senators here I wouldn't have on my board because there is no qualifications except your age, and you got to be living in the state and you're a citizen of the United States to be a senator. Other than the fact we got to convince a lot of people to vote for us. And then when we start talking about qualifications, for if you're qualified for it, could the chairman tell me what the qualifications are for the Secretary of Defense? Mr. Chairman, could you tell me what the qualifications are for the Secretary of Defense?
I'd be happy
I'll read it.
for you to do that. Yeah.
Let me read it for you because I Googled
I was getting some advice from my second in command.
Yeah, but I'm just making a point because there's a lot about qualifications, and I think it's so hypocritical of senators, especially on the other side of the aisle, be talking about his qualifications, not going to lead the secretary or be the Secretary of Defense, and yet your qualifications aren't any better. You guys aren't any more qualified to be the senator than I'm qualified to be the senator, except we're lucky enough to be here. But let me read you what the qualifications of the Secretary of Defense is, because I Googled it, and went through a lot of different sites, and really it's hard to see. But in general, the U.S. Secretary of Defense position is filled by a civilian. That's it. If you have served in the U.S. Army Forces and have been in the service for, you have to be retired for at least 7 years, and Congress can weigh that. And then there's questions that the senator from Massachusetts brought up about serving on a board inside the military industry, and yet your own secretary that you all voted for, Secretary Austin, we had to vote on a waiver because he stepped off the board of Raytheon. But I guess that's okay because that's a Democrat Secretary of Defense. But you so quickly forget about that. And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too. I have changed, but I'm not perfect. But I found somebody that thought I was perfect. And for whatever reason, you love Pete, and I don't know why. But just like our Lord and Savior forgave me, my wife's had to forgive me more than once too, and I'm sure you've had to forgive him too. And so thank you. So before I go down this rabbit hole again, tell me something about your wife that you love.
She's the smartest, most capable, loving, humble, honest person I've ever met. In addition to being incredibly beautiful. Don't forget about your kids. I'm supposed to talk about my kids?
No, well, she's also the mother.
Oh, an amazing mother.
Yes.
Of our blended family of 7 kids.
Brother, I'm pulling you along.
Her.
I'm trying to help you here. You know, Do you believe that you're going to be running the Secretary or the Department of Defense by yourself?
Senator, absolutely not. Just as President Trump is assembling his cabinet, I look forward and already am in the process of building one of the best possible teams you can imagine, with decades and decades of experience outside of the Pentagon, driving innovation and excellence, and also inside the building, knowing how to make it happen. Yes, sir.
So, in your organizations that you did have the privilege of running, did you have...
Why should one man's mistakes define his future when others skate past theirs with no consequence? That's the fire Mullin brought into the room. And the reaction? Let's just say some senators didn't see it coming. He pointed out the uncomfortable truth: while senators are quick to demand that nominees for positions like Secretary of Defense meet impossible standards, many of the people asking the questions couldn't meet those standards themselves. Think about it: no specialized training, no military service required, not even a professional background in security or defense. All you need is to win an election. That's it. And yet these same lawmakers sit in judgment declaring who is or isn't qualified to protect the nation. If that sounds like hypocrisy, that's because it is. So what actually makes someone qualified to be Secretary of Defense? The Constitution itself is surprisingly vague. The only real requirement is citizenship. Tradition adds a little more: the job should be held by a civilian, and if the candidate has served in the military, they should be retired for at least 7 years. That's about it. In fact, when retired General Lloyd Austin was nominated, he needed a special waiver from Congress because he hadn't yet hit that 7-year mark. And to complicate things even more, he had just stepped off the board of Raytheon, a major defense contractor. That alone should have raised red flags. But guess what? The Senate approved it anyway, because when it's someone backed by the right political party, the rules suddenly bend. That's exactly what Mullin was calling out. The rules don't seem to matter nearly as much as the politics behind them. The deeper issue here isn't about one nominee or one party, it's about Washington's obsession with double standards. Lawmakers love to put others under the microscope, but when it comes to their own lives, those rules vanish. Mullin went so far as to bring up examples that hit uncomfortably close to home. How many senators, he asked, have shown up to their jobs intoxicated? How many have been caught cheating on their spouses or making decisions while compromised? And yet, did anyone demand that those senators resign? Of course not. When it's one of their own, they look the other way, but when it's a nominee they don't like, suddenly personal mistakes become disqualifying. That's not accountability. That's theater. And people across the country see through it. This moment also opened the door to a much bigger conversation: how much should personal mistakes matter in politics? Everyone, no matter who they are, has moments they regret. Some are private, some are very public. Mullin even admitted his own past failures, saying that if it weren't for the love and forgiveness of his wife, he might not even be here today. That kind of honesty is rare in politics, and it hit home. It reminded people that leadership isn't about being flawless, it's about owning your past, learning from it, and becoming stronger because of it. Forgiveness is part of life, growth is part of leadership, but pretending to be perfect while pointing fingers at others, that's what fuels resentment. And that raises the question: what do we really want in a leader? Someone who hides their flaws and plays politics, or someone who acknowledges mistakes and shows they can grow past them? The truth is that the public doesn't expect perfection. What people want is accountability, transparency, and authenticity. They want leaders who aren't afraid to say, "Yes, I messed up, but here's how I've changed." That's a very different standard from the double-faced games played in Washington. But qualifications aren't just about personal character. Running the Pentagon isn't a one-man job, it's about leadership, and leadership means building a team. The strongest point Mullin made wasn't just about hypocrisy, it was about what makes a leader truly effective. A good leader doesn't pretend to know everything. They surround themselves with people who do. They empower advisors, experts, and innovators to bring their best ideas to the table, even when those ideas are challenging. That's not weakness, that's strength. And it's exactly the kind of leadership style the Pentagon needs if it's going to adapt to modern threats. In Mullin's words, success comes from having the confidence to let others run with the ball and not care who gets the credit. That's the kind of mindset that actually works in high-stakes situations. It's also worth noting how personal support plays into this. Mullin highlighted how much his wife's love and forgiveness shaped his own path. That wasn't just a sentimental moment, it was a powerful reminder that leadership isn't just built in boardrooms or battlefields. It's built at home, with the people who keep you grounded and remind you why you fight in the first place. A strong family, a strong support system, makes a leader more stable, more focused, and more capable. We don't talk about that side of leadership nearly enough, but it matters. Still, when it comes down to it, nothing speaks louder than military service. And here, the nominee's record is hard to ignore. 20 years of service, multiple deployments, bullets cracking overhead, friends lost in combat. These aren't abstract experiences. They're sacrifices made in real time, under real pressure. Most senators will never experience anything close to that. They debate policy in safe chambers, far removed from the front lines. But when someone has actually lived the consequences of those policies, that perspective is invaluable. It means they understand the stakes in a way no textbook or briefing can ever capture. That doesn't mean military service alone makes someone the perfect leader, but it does show a mindset of putting the country first, even at great personal cost. And maybe that's the heart of the debate. Do we want leaders who've actually lived sacrifice, or are we content with career politicians who treat leadership like a talking point? Because when you strip away the politics, the finger-pointing, and the showmanship, the core question is simple: who is truly prepared to make decisions that protect this nation? The people with real-world experience, or the people who only know how to score political points? Senator Mullin's fiery words didn't just defend one man's qualifications. They put the entire Senate on trial. If lawmakers want to hold others to a standard of perfection, then maybe it's time they start holding themselves to that same standard. If not, then perhaps we should admit what this really is, not about qualifications, but about power. And the American people deserve better than politicians who demand accountability from others while refusing to face it themselves. So what do you think? Should our leaders be judged by the same standards they impose on others, or should the public extend the same grace to politicians that we hope to find in our own lives? Drop your thoughts in the comments, let's get this conversation going, and don't forget, hit that subscribe button because the next video dives into an even bigger controversy you won't want to miss.